Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to Shadowverse, another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Monday, August 24th. So, this game just does not quit, frankly, as far as giving you new things to do. So, as it is, in between over the weekend, I've kind of needed to play a lot more than I actually did. But I also got 50 ranked matches, so I got a new flair of proving myself for that. And then some new animated basic cards that can be all collected. This is just getting a lot of the characters up to rank 30. I think the max is 120. I wouldn't be surprised if the max is actually somewhere closer to 250. I got up to rank C1 for another 100 rupees, which once again, these achievements, they're giving me gold right now, but after that point, I don't think there's going to be any opportunity to get gold. So, and I don't really feel like this is giving you enough gold to retroactively catch up on all of the cards that have been available, or even a decent collection as far as of the rotation cards. But yeah, there's still also just a ton of things that you're either never gonna get or you're highly unlikely gonna get. I didn't make any progress as far as the private matches. Didn't even try. But we did make more victories, so I am 1/10 of the way as far as the score is to claim this score, which does kind of make it questionable how you really would get to 100,000, because yeah, like today is August 24th and this ends on August 31st. Unless the new season just starts with you having 10,000 score, which that would be an interesting way to do it. Just you get a minimum score no matter what, and then if you get your score up to 100,000, you get a reset number of rewards every time. That would be about the only way I imagine you could continue to reward players of the game, is to have them potentially get to that 100,000 points, and then every season, every month, they get another card pack, which in a few vials. Yeah, there really isn't any reward here that's so extremely high that it wouldn't be ridiculous. It would be completely ridiculous. Like the highest reward is a legendary card pack ticket. So yeah, once you play enough every month, you could potentially get a legendary card pack. Even that seems slightly believable. Alright, let's come over here. We have some limited times of 1 day left to buy something. What is the thing that we have 1 day left on? Probably this, yeah. Which would be premium. Whereas I'm just gonna go ahead and buy a pack here. I still don't feel like we're gonna get any new cards anytime soon. Like, because we just got the expanded cards for Fortune's hand, so it really wouldn't make a lot of sense that we would get less. Let's see, this is new, almost certainly, and then I'm fairly certain all these others are not new, nor are these animated. So we get a new emblem slash maybe card sleeve. Let's come in here and liquefy extras. 7 of those 8 cards were not new. So yeah, we are getting fairly redundant. We have another arena, which it does make sense for me to just play my Forcecraft deck. And then we'll also need to do a draft, I think, just a pick 6 draft to open up more cards. And we also need to cover the news, which is not a ton of news that happened on the weekend, of course. And we also need to play just daily rotation because they're giving away reward chests, and they don't really explain what's in the reward chests. I've gotten like 50 gold out of them. I've gotten entire, like, really good cards, or what seems like at least decent cards out of them. So there is,
I guess you're looking for a fight.
It seems like a maximum of 5 per day reward chests you can get, but it seems also fairly random. Like, you can go 3 or 4 games, or potentially maybe even 2 or 3 victories before you're in a game that will give you a random reward chest. So they definitely are trying something here to make it so that you play a lot of ranked with the new expansion, which makes sense, and that is something I don't feel like they bothered to try to do at all in Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering Arena. Although at this point it's kind of pointless to even compare Shadowverse to those 2 games, because I've pretty much just forgotten about those 2 games at this point. But yeah, it's nice to get that encouragement, but then it kind of sucks to have the daily quest right now pointing me to also do the solo missions, which I'm making progress there, but not as much progress as I'd like. And I'm not really trying to play this game too much. Like, I'm still totally just dropping the ball as far as scheduling videos, and that should be my focus more than anything. But instead, and this will be my accountability section for today, geez, how far back should I go? Let's see. I think I last mentioned that I rage quit on the game Camera Obscura. I think I mentioned that. So Camera Obscura is very ugly, very simplistic, very seemingly poorly tested and QA'd game. At least that's as much as I could get before I rage quit after about 40 minutes of the game. Where you take pictures, you make an after image of the platforms you're standing on, and you can kind of shift it, in the sense that you can pan it, and through that panning you can then potentially you can then at that point potentially have a scenario where where you can reach jumps that you wouldn't be able to reach otherwise, and that's pretty much all all the game really is, as far as I could tell. Camp Obscura had a lot of stretch elements, where it was trying really hard to make you go back and do levels as fast as possible in as few steps as possible. I don't think any of those were quality tested though, because the very first speed test on the very first level seemed completely impossible. Well, impossible enough for just an average player. One thing I have learned about this deck, and probably all decks in Shadowverse, is that there is a decent argument to not having, not wasting the destroy an amulet ability card, because almost half the time, well, I'd say at least a third of the time, I feel like I run into somebody that has either a creature that's an in-game creature or an amulet that's an in-game amulet. And there's one specific amulet in particular that will just do 6 damage to all enemies. So you should sit on one destroy card, if not 2. That might even be more true in the cases of, in this case, because it might very well be a case that since you're trying to overwhelm your opponent with fairies, which are just the lowest of the low, one cost, 1 attack, 1 health creatures, having something to counter an end game and having something that will synergize with an end game would be very helpful. After rage quitting Camera Obscura, I played Shantae, Risky's Revenge, which is the second game in the Shantae series. The first one was a Game Boy game that came out I think it was 8 years earlier than Risky's Revenge, and even Risky's Revenge was like a Game Boy Advance game, so it's still a fairly old game. And yeah, it was alright. I liked it. I wouldn't recommend playing Shantae's Risky Revenge Director's Cut to 100% completion. Like, there's not really enough there to justify trying to 100% the game or get the 4 different endings, one of which is a speedrun ending. Do that? I don't think so. Let's see. Go ahead and kill that.
Time to head home.
And then let's go ahead and play this.
Hey, let's play.
And this.
Hey, let's play.
And this.
May the forest be at peace.
And that.
Hey, let's play. For the queen!
Time to head home. Kneel.
So yeah. Shantae's Risky's Revenge was a fine game, but it definitely also felt like a Game Boy Advance game. Very little, very small level, although there's quite a lot of difference between the original Shantae game, which I watched someone else play in his speedrun first. And in fact, there's actually several elements in the first game that kind of got left on the cutting room floor and didn't get repeated in Risky's Revenge. Perhaps simplifying the game to a point where it didn't really need to be. Risky's Revenge also is rated 10 plus, E10 plus, whereas it doesn't really feel like that's a type of game WayForward wanted to ever make, they just want Shantae to be in the belly dancing outfit that she's in, and other scantily clad, like equivalent to two-piece bikini type outfits. So I did notice that the next game in the Shantae series manages to very specifically be a T for teen game, and I wouldn't be particularly surprised if the future games after the third game in the series even moved it up to a teen plus. It would be kind of hard for them to go mature. They don't want to go full like mature or adult only with it. They just want to make occasional dirty jokes and show the characters as being somewhat see, that's just like another example of somehow getting some ability that lets them win, and I just don't even know how they got that ability in the like, I have no idea how I just lost it. And it would be nice if I had time to go back and look at the replays for games like that and say, hey, what is that card that you just played? That's what's supposed to happen in collectible card games, but they always take so much of your time that unless you're going to be a lifestyle player who's spending who's spending like 8 hours a day or 4 or 5 hours a day every day playing a card game, you're just not going to know what all the cards do. After playing Shantae, which was a platformer game with some small Metroidvania stuff, I then decided that, hey, there's a thread here with platforming and boss battles, even though Shantae really only had 4 or 5 boss battles. So this is a good excuse for me to finally play Cuphead, which I played Cuphead to bury the lead, and I almost made it all the way through Cuphead. I definitely, with every episode I was recording, felt like at any point I could just rage quit on Cuphead because that game is too difficult. Now, I didn't have any problem getting through the tutorial. I'm not a mainstream video game journalist quite yet, but in all fairness, the person who couldn't get through the tutorial apparently is just a tech journalist that gets thrown video game reviews for a non-video game specific news site. Although at this point in 2020, that's not even acceptable. That even something like CNET, I don't think he writes for CNET, but even something like CNET should have somebody on staff or hire somebody at least that can get through the tutorial of Cuphead. But playing the simple mode, which is not to be confused for the lack of an expert of an easy mode in Cuphead, but playing the simple modes, I was able to beat all of the bosses on the first island with very little struggle. Although I was frankly completely incapable of doing any of the run and gun sections, which felt like those would have been the easier sections, but somehow they aren't. This is one of these strategies where they're going to try and draw as many cards as possible out of their deck for a very specific card, and I may not have much I can do to counter something like this, because you do something like this and that's about the best you can do, and that won't even take that one guy out. So my only hope here is that he doesn't just decide to attack, and do 20 damage in one turn.
Absurd. Absurd.
Yep. There is definitely something that might need to be tweaked or banned in the ability that somebody can just play such a long sequence of events in one turn and potentially win, have a guaranteed win. So yeah, after I did the first isle and the first mausoleum in Cuphead, which was about 5 bosses on easy, then I was able to get to the second island, and I was able to do the second isle and everybody on the second isle eventually. It was probably on the third episode where I at one point had to say I'm gonna have to do this off screen. Cuphead in particular, defeating the bosses, it really is just a matter of surviving long enough and doing one more hit, 10% more hits, 10 more hits, things like that, and you don't really even get much of a gameplay display when you do succeed. There is an animation showing the bosses dying for sure. That footage was not shown, certainly, and once again on the second isle I was not able to do any of the run and gun sections. I eventually was able to go back and manage to do the very first run and gun section, and I was able to get all the coins when I did it, which allowed me to have 8 coins in total that I found. Turns out there probably was another 2 or 3 I could have found just lying around the overworld if I had paid, been a bit luckier on that. But yeah, there's with only eventually having about 8 coins, I was able to purchase 1 weapon upgrade and like 1 or 2
Hey, let's play.
let's see.
Hey, let's play.
Yep. I was able to get like 1 secondary weapon and 1, maybe 2 special items that none of which really helped too much other than the boomerang secondary attack. That helped fairly well. But the secondary items are kind of useless, and after you get the first secondary attack, the first super attack, you don't need to do the other mausoleums really, because the second super attack is not really useful, and the third super attack is not really useful. But I was able to do all the mausoleums, and honestly they were fairly easy. There probably should have been more mausoleum sections.
Peace in the hearts of all.
And then I got to the 3rd level, and I got a lot of that done on the 3rd island in Cuphead off screen too, but I was able to show that through my own effort I was capable enough, assuming people want to believe that I actually did it and didn't cheat. I was capable enough to get to King Dice, which is the second to last character you have to fight, with the devil being the final character. But because the game really has a terrible gatekeeping problem, like it gatekeeps you in a lot of places for no reason, whereas it would make a lot more sense if the entire map was just an open world map where you could just run around and fight anybody you wanted, and then you had to beat everybody to fight the final boss. Much kind of like Shadow of the Colossus. I imagine that would be a good comparison.
How could you?
But yeah, they showed no interest in that, and they gatekeep you in several places. So there definitely were several places where if you could not beat one specific boss or two specific bosses, you would just be out of luck. And then when you get to the end, you have to beat them all on the regular mode, which means you can't have beaten them on the simple mode, which was the easier mode slightly. Which then means I really wasn't anywhere close to being able to actually fight the last two people. But I did have a 200% save file, or what claimed to be a 200% save file. So I was able to use that as a way of loading into another save file and show some of the battles from the last two boss battles, King Dice and the Devil. Although I really can't get anywhere with them, so there was many times where I couldn't show the second phase or the third phase or any further phases that might exist on the regular mode of the bosses. And there is an expert mode, and there's pacifist modes for the run and gun sections where you can't shoot anything. So all of those would be other considerations, certainly, as far as just how far I really was to actually being anywhere close to good at Cuphead. Almost every hour-long episode ended with my fingers being a little blistered and sore. The control layout by default for Cuphead is just totally wrong. They basically want you to tap the X button constantly to fire, when there should be a option to toggle rapid fire, and there is no option like that at all. So instead, what you have is what you have is a situation where you're having to hold down a trigger. If you manage to figure out that that's the smart way to do this, is to have a left trigger, is what I set it to always shoot. So yeah, Cuphead's not a game I can really recommend to people. And honestly, I think a lot of this like high praise for the game Cuphead, besides it being just the visuals and people being enthralled with the visuals, or mainstream video game journalists being enthralled with the visuals, the game itself seems like usually you'd have a mainstream video game journalism say that it's just too hard and complain about that, but I guess the counter narrative of people complaining about games being too hard had already started to spin up before anybody could make that claim. So instead they just kind of heaped praises on it for a week and then forgot about it, and they certainly hyped it up a lot. There was far too much hype for Cuphead, and not enough compromise, honestly. Like, I hate to tell an artist that they need to compromise their artistic vision, but they needed to compromise their artistic vision in order for it to have any sense of broad appeal. as it is, I can just say you should watch somebody else do a speed run on Cuphead, and you're going to have a better experience than what you would do actually playing the game, unless you're just an expert run and gunner. I saw one video, now that YouTube is just recommending me everything Cuphead related from 4 years ago, saying that the fights were throwbacks to like old Contra style Sega Genesis games, and I'm like, oh, those games weren't really great even then. And the visuals are, of course, are throwbacks to 1930s cartoons, which it is. I also did have to mention that, yeah, those 1930s cartoons that often were based off of minstrel shows and thus, whether the creators of the games intended it or not, are basing their imagery off somebody who has based their imagery off racist imagery. That's problematic, to use a word that people probably shouldn't use. But when you look at the devil, he is a monkey looking character in black fur. When you look at Mr. King Dice, he is an Italian stereotype. When you look at Cuphead and Mugman, even they potentially could be very much racist depictions of black people.
Hey, let's play. Yeah.
So that's something that I think needs to be mentioned, and then probably immediately forgotten, but mentioned nonetheless. But as I've thought about it a little bit more, I really think Cuphead should have taken the 15 hours it would have taken a really, really good player to beat the game. So what it would have taken if you were only going to take, say, 50 deaths or lower, and that should have been the experience for where nothing changed in how Cuphead actually plays. And it's really weird. I know they're making DLC, but unless the DLC is a patch for an easy mode, they're just going to be adding more content for the extremely niche audience of people who still care about Cuphead and could actually play it at some point and succeed in it, which might literally be 1,000 or 2,000 speedrunners, and that's it. This is one of the ones where they've got some kind of trick here that brings this guy back to your hand over and over again, but then there's kind of no hand destruction cards, so I don't know how you're supposed to fix that either. Like, the only hand destruction concept you can do is get them to draw 9 cards, and then you can do some deck destruction there. You can't do actual hand destruction. Yeah. But if Cuphead let you die 50 times, and then after the 50th time you had gained some level of XP, and it was kind of a roguelite style game, then at that point, on the 51st death or thereabout, depending on how much damage you did, like if you were getting just like 1 XP every time you did a certain amount of damage, then you could balance it out even more. But after about 50 deaths, at that point you should either be presented with the opportunity to increase your health by 1, because you never regain health in Cuphead. So, well, you regain it in between battles, but you never regain it in battle. So going from 3 hits to 4 hits would be super helpful for somebody. And then another 50 deaths after that, you potentially could get another health, and honestly, you could probably work it down to a point where you might have 100 health at the final boss battle, and it's still very possible that if somebody just was really, really bad on the final boss battle, 100 health wouldn't help. Maybe you expand it a little bit further there, and you also say, well, maybe you don't want to increase your health instead you want to increase the charge time on your super attacks, or maybe you just want to increase your base damage. Any of those would potentially help the players that struggled with it, and let them make some level of progress other than just blistering your fingers and hoping that they're training themselves subconsciously with muscle memory to potentially get lucky and defeat the bosses the one time it's necessary. But yeah, if there's just a light RPG element, that would be fine. Or you could potentially gatekeep it just a little bit so that you have to beat one of the bosses to get their soul contract, and when you get their soul contract, then that's where you get the opportunity to increase your damage or your health or something like that, because even at that point, then a speedrunner would potentially have 15 or 20 hits at the final boss, and then maybe you have an expert mode at the beginning where you turn that off. But as it stands, Cuphead just does not help you at all. You're just it's just this too bad kid, go home attitude. We're not going to help at all. It's very poorly designed as a video game. It's very pretty visually, but very, very poorly designed as a video game. And I feel like it lucked itself out of a lot of criticism that it deserved to actually have. And I shouldn't have to go find a 200% save file just so I can see the final two bosses. And I did see a video. Once again, YouTube is just suggesting me every Cuphead related video now, talking about the assist mode in Celeste. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll put Celeste on the follow list, on the wish list. I think I've in the past rejected Celeste because it looked like it was a frustration platformer, and it is a frustration platformer, but if it has an assist mode with invincibility, which I saw, and it has an assist mode with infinite double jumps, which I saw, well, all of a sudden I have that potential there of actually being able to accomplish some goals there.
This is the only way out of the... That's strange. Ooh, that's cold.
So yeah, Celeste interests me. Now that I'm done with the series of Cuphead, I have no interest in going back and playing it anymore. So I'm probably going to continue the series and play the next Shantae game. And then I'll have to think about if I even have another platformer to play in between the third Shantae and the fourth Shantae game.
Filthy little.
I don't believe I own the fifth one, nor do I think it's justifiable to purchase it at the moment. Like,
To the ends of the earth.
there's kind of always that issue.
The power of nature.
That is just gonna happen right now. It's like finances are just so up in the air for everybody. It's much wiser to be cautious.
Okay, this one's all me.
I might have a Wonder Boy game, and that would be the perfect thing to play. Is play a Wonder Boy game that is very similar to the Shantae games, and almost certainly the Shantae games are in part influenced by Wonder Boy. Okay, well, we got one win. You needed 4 wins to qualify for Group A. Odds are I would never get 4 wins. But yeah. See, there's these treasure chests, and these end on the 30th. And these might be more of a reward to keep people playing at the end of the month than as a reward to have people to get people to play because of the new cards. And see, when you load in a game, it'll just kind of awkwardly load in a new load screen if this is a treasure chest battle, and sometimes it'll say 0 or 5, and sometimes, and see, the chest qualities seem to be fairly random too, so that definitely looks like a really good a really good reward. But you have to kind of win it. I don't think it locks you into a scenario where you're always going to be offered that reward until you win. So you can seemingly also blow it if you lose. Yeah. As I move up in rank play, the odds of me winning or losing also are shifting, probably in the negative direction. Well, if they know what they're doing and they're just going to end turns really fast and play really fast, that it could be an indicator of a few things. Okay. So, I'm gonna look over my Twitter feed and see if anything new has happened. We do have a full length of tabs, so there's a decent amount of news. I could destroy this. So deal 1 damage to the follower. This. See, I guess the question is, do I want to get rid of that? And I think I kind of need to.
Bad people are evil. Stay away. Someday I'll.
There we go. Toho Luna Nights is now available for pre-order digitally on the Xbox One. That's interesting. So is the Coma 2 Vicious Sisters. Marvel Avengers has a launch trailer. Nobody's saying anything nice about Marvel Avengers, really. I think I saw another article about Battletoads, and I don't know if perhaps the reason why there is inconsistent review scores or reviews being given to Battletoads is in part because like one of the characters kind of spouts some SJW thing and they don't want to criticize that, or maybe they do want to criticize that because the game is just like doesn't seem like it was well designed. Kind of feels like, according to the story, it's all that it's one of these cases where the game creator kind of hated his audience. So that oddly happens far too often.
That suits you.
They keep wrecking me doing these things.
Hey, let's play.
Beg for mercy.
I'm so sparkly. Yeah.
So we can do this,
Time to
we can do this, that can do 7, but unless I could have done something else, which I couldn't have, he's probably just going to be able to play the other character and get a storm. Like,
Absurd. Absurd.
these guys are winning far too often. You'd think if it was a real celebration, they would just want you to actually just play the game to get the reward, or play a certain amount of the game to get the reward, but it's not the case. And I still am also running into the issue of this being daily rewards or 24-hour rewards, really. Well, maybe it does lock you into potentially getting that reward.
Activate.
So,
Enhance. Fire.
like, I would much prefer to get a new reward every 24 hours and then have 3 of those rewards stack up so I could play on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If I was streaming on the schedule of how the rewards showed up for Shadowverse, I'd have to stream every single day, and there'd just be nothing to say on some days. There would be absolutely no news at all.
stay away.
Alright, moving on to news. Here's Gamatsu. Wonder Boy Asha in Monster World announced for the Switch and PS4. The series creators returns for the Studio Art Dink developed sequel, which I guess Asha might be the female interest, which that seems like what they do with the Wonder Boy series is that they kind of play with the names a lot, because sometimes Wonder Boy is Monster Boy and you turn into monsters for one of the games. See, stars Asha, the protagonist of the 1994 released Wonder Boy 4, and her blue Pepe logo, which probably isn't pronounced that way. So these are the 2 protagonists, which then it kind of makes the question, where is Wonder Boy in here? And it seems like he's nowhere to be seen.
Gotta reload.
That was
Hey, let's
maybe
play.
a little bit of overkill. But I definitely do think the Wonder Boy series is very much in line with the Shantae series, except for in Shantae you're playing as a scantily clad belly dancer, half genie character. But pretty much it is the same idea, and both are light fantasy, and both feel like they definitely had some influences from the Legend of Zelda NES game, which of course would make sense, but also in general I think the light fantasy stuff is the same. We may see a bit of a renaissance here, probably not a large renaissance, of people being willing to make games based on India, Middle East Indian style stories, whether those stories were ever accurate or not. Perhaps that might, in a bigger point, be an indication that game developers have realized that there is no real interest to the Middle East as far as selling games, and there's no doing business with the Middle East as far as selling games, because like nobody wants to really play a game set in a theocracy, a Muslim theocratic country, and nobody really wants to hear stories about that. We want stories of the mummies in ancient Egypt and things, and Prince of Persia style stories, in Aladdin and the 40 Thieves, things like that. Regardless of whether that was ever actually an accurate depiction, that's the nostalgia that people in the West have. Kind of in the same way that if we're going to watch a Chinese movie or Japanese movie, there's a decent expectation that it's either going to be a horror movie, a Japanese horror, or it's going to be a kung fu movie.
Coming at you.
Let's see. Moving on, we have a article here from videogamechronicle.com. A new Nintendo Switch model will hit launch next year, a new report claims. The updated model could enter production later this year. That's questionable. And like, if it was a new model, I'm not sure what really changes. It could just be to address like Joy-Con drift. That'd be about my only guess, because there's really nothing else that they could do. Even if they put in like faster RAM, the truth of the matter is they would have to underclock that RAM just so the games perform the same way. Either that, or they abandon their initial fan base of people who bought the first model. There's already been a revision with better battery life of the standard Switch and the Switch Lite as a spin-off version, and I would think that there really would just need to be a slight change in hardware versions if you're just going to make a tiny change.
The quickest silver.
And you definitely can't make a big change. You can't like get rid of Joy-Cons completely and still call it the Switch. You would have to think of something else. Yeah, I'm definitely getting to the point where I think I've hit my plateau as far as playing ranked. C1 seems to be about as far as I can get at the moment. And I can only really get that far on Forestcraft. Yeah, I guess it does lock you into a reward until you win. So there definitely is a possibility here where you may have to play a lot off screen. And I don't think it's going to happen because I can always see the beginning of the end, but there is also the possibility that I'll all of a sudden get really tired because I don't think I've slept in probably at least 14 hours. Yeah. My sleep schedule and insomnia still fairly being affected by the heat of the summer, I would say, more than anything. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Spartoy Meadow. Doesn't have much of a description here. It's just tagged as an action RPG game. It looks to me like it might be a Chinese tech demo. Yeah, it might also be like a cell phone port. It's $8.99 English and Japanese. Oops, I was wrong on that. Guess. We'll put it on the follow list, but I'm probably being too generous for what's being shown. Yeah. I don't think there's really a game here enough with its dark screenshot syndrome to justify. Yeah, even leaving it on the follow list is not realistic. Next, we have a game on Steam called the Horoscope Fatal Awakening, which looks like it might be an RPG Maker game or a visual novel. They're calling it a Choices Matter RPG with trivia and psychological horror. And almost every screenshot is either this one character, this one part, or text on screen. They're selling it for $1.19 English full audio. So it's basically a text game for the most part. This will have to be our last game that we play on rotation if we're gonna do a draw 6. So yeah. And the Horoscope Fatal Awakening, not showing anything in the video either that could save it or put it on the fall list. Next, Gamatsu has an article here. MO is Stray for Switch launches September 10th as a side-scrolling action platformer game. I have not heard anything about this game. Apparently it came out in October of 2019. That seems to keep happening quite a bit. Is a rather large amount of games came out on the Steam, got no coverage or very little coverage, and
The quickest silver.
that was that. Yeah, they're pulling off the same tricks again. Just trying to play as many cards as possible. Alright. I could do 3 damage here.
Not one for pranks.
I can do this. And can't really do anything more. Yeah, looking on Steam, this game MO Astray is rated very positively as a puzzle platformer. It is on my fall list, which means this is also an indicator of me not having done a fall list cleanup since October 25th, 2019. So that should be promoted to the wish list. And they're comparing it to Cuphead and Bioshock, 2 very different games. These guys are over here just not even paying attention to it, but we know what's happening here. I'm getting... He is playing 4 or 5 cards compared to my ability to play 1 card. Right. Let's see. This. And... evolve this, I guess.
Bad people are evil.
Then we can get rid of that. We can get rid of that.
Gotta reload.
And then we get rid of that one. And that one. And that one. And that gets it, got him up to like 8. Yeah, I got him up to 8, but he only needed 4. So the only way this really would have worked is if 4 cards otherwise were played, which is very hard to do. This is a card I probably should change out. This guy would have gotten Ward. I definitely still am missing a decent amount of cards, as far as cards to put in the deck. But I definitely don't want to do a open 6 with that would just end up with me getting a bunch of Forestcraft cards. Yeah, Bloodcraft by far is the worst deck I have, so Portalcraft is probably pretty bad. No, Portalcraft's not too bad, and Havencraft's not too bad. Bloodcraft is the choice here. So, let's look at these cards first. We have Aragavi the Berserker. If Wraith is activated, you gain the ability to evolve for 0 points at the start of your opponent's turn. If the leader took damage during the previous turn, restore 3 damage to your leader. So, if you take damage, you restore damage. Deal 4 damage to enemy follower. If you have at least 4 play points, use 4 play points and deal damage to all other followers instead. At the start of your opponent's turn, if your leader took damage during your previous turn, restore 3 also. Right, that sounds like a good card. Finalite Amulet is in play. Deal 2 damage to enemy follower. Give your leader the following effect during your turn. Whenever cards are added to your hand from your deck, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. Do this X times. X equals the number of cards added to your hand. This effect is not stackable. Alright, well, this is the one I'm going to select. But at that point, you're just kind of left wherever you are. So let's just be honest here. Your odds of getting good cards are the same in open 6 as they are just opening the pack. And so those are all the same thing. Can we build a strategy around this? Maybe. Here's Celeste, by the way. It is on my wish list, so I guess I did make the right choice there. I would have not really believed that. I would have thought that I would have been closed-minded and chosen to ignore it. What we're really looking for while opening these packs also is just golds and silvers. Like, and the Boom Devil is nice and all, but it's not particularly the best cards. And I guess getting animated versions of cards aren't bad either. Now our odds of getting something new are fairly higher on these older expansions. So getting 2 gold, that's probably going to be useful. And these are neutral cards, so getting neutral cards might be very useful too. And see, this is from the Ultimate Coliseum and it's still not in English. I'm surprised about that. Maybe they just don't translate some of the characters. I'm also still really surprised that there's so many named characters in this game that don't seem to have a connecting story to them. It kind of feels like there should just be a short story that is released every month to tell more of a backstory of 5 or 6 characters from the expansion. So we have this, which I may have had a copy of that, and this, which I may have had a copy of that, but I don't think we're getting into third copies. And here we have the Phantom cards, which will be very useful if they decide to play their part. Although, why would I draw this card? See, we knew we were going to get this one. We knew we were going to get this one. We just got a guaranteed copy of this, and this is not animated, so there's no reason to pick this if we actually win enough victories that we can pick this. It may get down to the point where we'll have to look at the cards and decide that we maybe like these cards better. I think we got a copy of that also, so there might be a good argument here to be real careful not to get cards we already have. So for Fortune's Hand, seems like none of those were new. For World Uprooted, we got one copy of something new. For Ultimate Coliseum, we got a copy of this and a copy of that, both of which were new. For Verdant Conflict, we got this, and this, which is new. Now, wait a minute. Interesting. I thought this was the same, and then this is the same as this. So one of these was new, but the other wasn't new because this is animated and this isn't. Interesting. Okay. So we have 48 cards in the deck. So it would just become a matter of deciding what do we want to get rid of. 10th turn, that does 5 damage to everybody. This summons 2 serpents for 2. Otherwise you play it for 6 and you deal 3 damage. And restore 3 to you. This destroys an enemy for 2. Otherwise it destroys 2 enemy followers. Draw 3 cards and randomly discards them. See, this would just add to our hand and return things. So actually, even though those are new cards, I don't think we're gonna play this. It's just a lot of destroy cards here. Draw cards. Let's see. Deal damage based on the number of times they have a heart. Your leader's been hit. That's a buff card, that's good. 2 of these. You'll get Storm on the second playthrough. Which I guess if you put that on the field and then you returned it to your hand and then played it a second time, you could get Storm that way. But you probably couldn't do that in the first turn. I think we can probably get rid of a 4 mana that just draws a card. Because there's probably something better. I don't think that actually is going to be useful. I don't think that's going to work. This is probably not something that's important. This one does 5 damage to both characters and both players to draw a card. So there's an argument around the idea of not playing that. So we may get rid of Deal of the Devil. Yeah, you have a 2 draw 1 cards. This does 1 damage to your leader. Probably get rid of that. And let's see. So yeah, I think we get rid of 1 Deal with the Devil, and that's, I think, as balanced as we can do it. 1 amulet, 7 spells, 32 followers, a live 2 spell characters. And we could certainly preview, and if I knew what these cards look like and what they did, that might be useful, but I don't, so that really isn't useful. So what are we looking for? We're looking for like 5 wins through sheer luck, or at least 2 or 3 wins through sheer luck. I have noticed that Shadowverse does seem to have some problems with my network a little bit more than the other games do. It seems like it might on occasion send some random garbage out, and it might be the source for my router deciding all of a sudden to crash. Could also just be my settings. I could have easily configured something in the router and that's causing the crashing. I did change the Watchdog software to actually look at the log every 10 minutes and just look at the last 20 lines and decide whether or not there's been a critical error in the log or not. That way, if it does see a critical error, it will just reboot in general. It shouldn't need to reboot, but there's a way that the router software loads the information versus the way that it reloads information, which causes it to crash or not load the information correctly. I guess that is the risk you always take, though, running custom settings and custom software. Okay. Probably want to sit on that for a while.
I won't hurt you too much.
See, I could play this, but it would be a bad time to play it. You kind of want to play it the 5th turn. That way he can't evolve without taking 2 damage.
What do you think you're doing?
Gamma Sutra has an article here. Someone Games Done Quick has raised over 2.3 million for charity. I feel like that is a lot lower than previous times. This was for Doctors Without Borders. I've been seeing them put up videos, but they were fully online, and the fully online versions of the game often are kind of pathetic. Yeah, this won't work.
Debts are paid in kind.
Because it really is just not 20 minus your leader's defense. Well, that'll work.
You will soon learn. No need to await.
Go home! Your mama's calling ya!
That. And that. And... I'm just gonna play this, even though I probably should wait another turn. Yeah, summer games done quick when it's not being live streamed is even worse than how it normally turns out, and frankly, they are very up and down on the quality of those speed runs
Big sister.
as far as whether you have a good presenter who's actually going to talk, whether you have people on a couch talking, talking also and throwing in their input. If you don't have a good presentation set up, it's just not going to be good. And that very often is the problem, is it isn't good. I could play this. I could play this. Alright, well, it's not terrible. And then
Witness the power. Rot.
get that and that.
I'm coming for you.
Where'd he get the ghost from? Yeah, there's a speedrun for Baba Is You, so I guess I could watch that, but that would probably be a spoiler, and I actually want to play Baba Is You unspoiled. And then looking at the article, there was a speedrun for Doom 64, which might be worth watching, and Half-Life Alyx, which might be watching. A lot of speedruns, though, are so full of glitches that you don't even get a general idea of whether a game is good or not, and that's what I've been trying to use speedruns for more and more often.
Forgive me.
Is an indicator as far as, hey, is this game something worth playing? Right.
Let us conclude.
See. On the 10th turn, this could do 5 damage. So if I can get him down to 5 damage, odds of him regaining health are fairly low. Gametsu has an article, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 14 Diplomacy and Strategy Expansion Pack Bundle announced for PS4, Switch, and PC. There's still companies out there that are definitely trying to sell more Romance of the Three Kingdoms games. Okay, well, how do we want to do this? We could rush and put that on the field. We could do this. I think you do. This is the best bet. You do that. Let's see. Gamer Sutra has this article. Microsoft backs Epic Games in a legal dispute with Apple. I think this mostly boils down to the idea of Microsoft just seeing Apple as a competitor. And I guess in a small way that is still true. Between like Apple and macOS potentially being a company that could theoretically pose a threat to PC gaming and Windows gaming. I imagine that there is little threat of
Have you the gall? Go ahead. Cut me.
yeah, I imagine that there's actually very little threat of the of Linux taking over or being a competitor, but I could see them still thinking Apple is an issue. And Apple does have some issues, so I definitely could see where people will just side against Apple, even if in fact there's not really a good logical reason for it. Okay. See, this is where a deal with the devil would work. Then we can do that. And now I can play this. +2 in ward would be 8. Defensive. But I still am not going to be able to do enough damage. This guy's just healing like crazy. Let's see. This.
I won't hurt you too much.
And then this.
Flames to the fire.
I've built a deck that's not really built around the idea of getting Vengeance to be active, though. So that's hard to. Yeah, I could see a lot of people just siding with Epic to try and take down Apple, or put some pressure on Apple. And I guess it will just be a matter of.
Cheap and underhanded? Why, thank you. Cheap and underhanded?
Trying to figure out what would really happen and how that would really go.
Oh, that all you got?
That.
I'll live again.
Oh, that all you got?
And that. And I've lost. I imagine there will be just a lot of political wrangling in general between Epic and Apple. And it probably won't go anywhere because it's important to mention that like court cases aren't really moving particularly fast in the middle of the pandemic. If anything, I would say they're going to run a lot slower, and they weren't running particularly fast even before the pandemic. So this could be 2-3 years minimum, and with Apple's previous way of dragging their feet through lawsuits, it could be a decade or longer. But on the other hand, Microsoft literally has no business with Apple. So, as far as I know, so there's kind of no reason for them not to side with Apple, with Epic. And Microsoft does have some business with the Unreal Engine and Epic, and if all of a sudden Microsoft was getting better or more Epic designed games on their consoles or on PC, they have that extra benefit. Let's see. Well, this is gonna stink, but we might as well do it. TechRaptor has an article here. Lab Zero melts as the founder reneges on agreement to depart. So apparently Mike Zimant, the owner of Lab Zero Games, has backtracked on an agreement to leave the company and has instead removed its board, taking full control of the studio. Employees are leaving the studio and citing Zimant's behavior as the reason for this departure. I think we're going to see a lot more of this. Like the Chinese brand ARM, the Chinese branch of ARM chip makers apparently has just gone completely rogue, and who knows what the Chinese government's response to that is going to really be, but it does seem like there's some major insanity that's just going to happen in general as the economy gets worse and cracks in armor start to show quite a bit.
Sugar's the best cure for the blues, you know.
Like, I don't know as a CEO why I would ever agree to depart a company without immediately just departing the company. And there'd be no like talk of it at all. It would just be the announcement would come out that I've retired. So I don't even know, I don't recall there being any story here either, which that also brings in an interesting thought. It's just why would there be a need or a desire for the owner to leave? Let's see. What's going on at Lab Zero Games? Lab Zero Games apparently was the developer making Indivisible, which I think there also was a Netflix movie or a cartoon being developed from there. But also it felt like Indivisible. But yeah, Indivisible never really seemed like it was.
This case tastes funny.
Like, Indivisible never really felt like it was a fully polished experience.
The truth was a bitter pill.
Okay. Okay. According to a tweet by a now former Lab Zero artist Brian June, Zaymont, who goes by Mike Z, creates an unsafe work environment for his employees. The Lab Zero board had originally asked Mike Z to leave the company after allegations of sexual harassment, thanks Kotaku, were made by multiple employees earlier this year, so this is a Me Too situation. Saying that Mike Z sometimes made me feel unsettled, and they exhibited a clear pattern of systemic abuse and lack of empathy. Okay, well, is this a Papa John scenario where he's gonna literally just come back and say this is just some trumped up, made up garbage to get rid of a guy so the board can take over? Which seems to definitely be happening, in my opinion. I think it's fairly obvious that there are some false accusations and some traps being laid for CEOs so that the board can take over. And in all fairness, yeah, I would assume that a board of any company is a lot closer to King's Landing and Game of Thrones than it is a orderly group of people that are all on the same page and all like the positions they're in.
The real battle begins.
Where is your plumage?
The moon looks lovely tonight.
Apparently, Zimant was on paid administrative leave and the board ended negotiations with him, but June says Zimant's demands were unrealistic. The board rejected his terms, so Zimant reversed his decision and removed the board as the sole owner of Lab Zero Games. According to June, this was never the plan for Lab Zero. The original intent was to offer employees equity shares after transferring ownership from the previous co-owner, Alex Ahad, who was let go for being quote, increasingly hostile. So, yeah, it definitely sounds to me like there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. A lot of complaints.
Bring the flames to the
Severe.
See. See. Draw a card.
Won't hurt you too much.
And then my turn. Yep. It's not just June, however. Indivisible's lead writer Brandon Shefton also came forward to share his story about Lab Zero after reading June's account. Sheffield said he absolutely cannot forgive or shrug off Mike Z's inappropriate behavior. He specifically cited sexually harassing DMs sent to Twitch streamer Bunny IU and cosplayer Carvin. Well, whatever he sent or didn't send to Twitch streamers and cosplayers really is not, in my book, it's not important. It just isn't, because what you do in the privacy of your own time is not reflective and shouldn't be reflective of whether or not you're qualified to run a business. And this definitely is one of those scenarios where, once again, I'm probably gonna end up eating crow, but it does oddly feel like somebody worked hard to build up their business or become the CEO of a business, and now, so far, flimsy complaints at best are being made. Where are the receipts? Where are the court cases? This is obviously just going to be my response to any of these complaints, though. It's like, also apparently made a joke on a Twitch stream after the death of George Floyd. That they're complaining about, but these do seem like fairly milquetoast complaints that are not even being mentioned by people who sound like they're actually victims. Make these two fight each other? That was fairly pathetic. Is my defense higher? No.
Witness the power.
Now that would have worked. So the article continues. So what happens to Lab Zero now? It's not entirely clear. The studio has been radio silent on Twitter since July. At this point, the team said that it's aware of allegations made against Zaymont and was listening, with a full statement coming forward. Given Zaymont's apparent coup, I don't think it's a coup in this case. He's the sole owner. He can do whatever he wants. And honestly, his response to this is so obvious and so believable. He's gonna say, these accusations were trumped up. I made some mistakes in the past, but then the board tried to use that to take control of the company away from me and not pay me a reasonable amount for the company, so I was not willing to sell to that. Therefore, as the sole owner, I could not work with this board any further because they were being unreasonable. Therefore, I dissolved the board, got rid of them, and I'm going to run this company the way I want to run it, or I'm going to sell this company to someone else who wants to run it. And since it's his company, that's pretty much it. There are other interested parties in the fact that maybe some people out there still would like to see Indivisible like fully playable and fully finished, where I don't feel like it actually is fully playable and fully finished right now, even though I think it probably advertised itself as that. And I imagine Netflix wants to see Indivisible turned into a game, a good TV show. There is also, I suppose, some shade I could throw here that it always seems like the games, the game companies that try to appear as woke often are the same ones that have these kind of complaints.
All too easy.
Disconnected. Hopefully that doesn't mean I'm disconnected and that they disconnected for real. And it probably does backfire in two different ways, because if your company is trying to be super woke, and I don't think they were trying to be super woke by having a female protagonist in the game, that often means you have nothing but super woke employees, and I think that is a consistent problem in a lot of these issues. And the super woke people, the SJWs, that want to be super woke, constantly have to find some new target to attack, and they always will try to attack power, and they will always try to attack anybody they perceive of having power or having success. And I won't boil it down to simple jealousy, but I bet that plays a small role. But yeah, SJWs eat themselves. To the point, if I was running a company and I found out that somebody was a super SJW, I would have to keep a tight eye on them and probably try to find a reason to get rid of them. I don't mind somebody being extremely liberal, but it's always important to remember there's a difference between SJW and liberal. The SJW is the insult that liberals use on like armchair quarterback liberals who don't do anything effective and just are always complaining about things that are stupid and not important. Things like violence in video games while ignoring actual wars that are going on. Let's see, Wrath is active. Recover 2 play points, or just kill this right now.
This is a great deal, you know.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Lost Remnant: The End Tides. That was an actual article and an actual story, which we haven't seen actual articles and stories in a while. This looks like it's a city management game. They're calling it a Lovecraftian point-and-click exploration game. It's free to play, so I guess the price is right. English, allegedly full audio, but visually it doesn't look interesting at all. Alright. Do this. And evolve.
Cut me.
that.
This is a great deal, you know.
That. I really do wish some of these stories would just come straight out. Like, at least when you look at like the Gearbox Randy Pitchford stuff, his actions are mostly done in public, or his actions done in public fall very much in line with accusations made against him otherwise, and it does feel like Lab Zero probably will be a Gearbox scenario if it's not publicly owned. There's no sneaky way to take over control of a company. Not that I could ever think of. Right.
Go ahead. Cut me.
Oh man, I screwed that up. Nope. That'll still work.
Witness the power. Just go ahead. Cut me.
Yeah. The thing also about like the accusations against Randy Pitchford, though, if we think about it and we just go over it, you have accusations he lied directly about alien colonials, Marines, which is the least of it. There's footage of what he said pretty much available. Everybody knows what he said. There's accusations that he attacked, pushed somebody in a hallway, and those accusations came directly from the person who was pushed, so that's believable enough to say, yeah, that probably didn't happen. Plus he had no real other accusations, I think. No real defense against any of that. Randy Pitchford has actually done very little to try and defend himself, which I think is probably simply because he knows that there's nothing he could defend himself with. He directly admitted having the porn on the USB stick and losing the USB stick with secret documents on it, even though he denies the reason why he had the porn. The lawyer that claimed he was embezzling a bunch of things and suing him, they both settled that lawsuit, but I imagine he was embezzling things. It definitely seems on the face of it that he's embezzling things, and I think all of his employees, if you asked them in private, would say they think he's embezzling money.
Here I go.
I have 8 health.
Now, prove your worth.
Is there...
As close as my tail, fellow muse.
I feel my blood running cold.
I'm gonna have to pull some shenanigans here. 3 damage to an enemy follower. Select 2 to fight each other. And I can do that. So you do this and this.
Justice does not hide in the shadows.
And then this can do 2 damage to the enemy leader. This would do 1 damage to my leader, so I can't really play it. I don't want to play it, so I have to leave it there. I could win here, but I'm gonna have to get fairly lucky.
Walked into the wrong forest, friend.
Because I have 3 health, and all he's got to do is do 1 more damage. Gamatsu has an article here. Yakuza Like a Dragon for PS4, Xbox One, and PC launches November 13th in the West. I don't think Yakuza Like a Dragon is the game I saw a review of recently. I think it's the other one, but I saw a scathing review of that game where it was definitely a hardcore fan of the Shenmue series. I think it was, yeah, it was a review of the latest Shenmue game. A hardcore fan who's been playing like all the Shenmue games came out and said, with this latest Shenmue game, I've just wasted my life. It's just that bad, and it's not going anywhere. Which, yeah, that was the title of the video, and even for clickbait titles, that was quite extreme. Here's yet another character I don't recognize as far as the leader skin. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Children of Morta charity DLC Paws and Claws is now available. All proceeds go to the Humane Society International charity. So that whole fatwa on Children of Morta just disappeared completely. Let's see. What does it actually add? And it adds an animal shelter system, a herd of varied animals, new mechanic, use treats to feed animals and look after them, new special animal rated beast boosts, XP gain, movement speed, and more, available for the Bergsons, which I think is the family. I would assume that's the family. New home interactive events and more than 100 new animations. So it doesn't really strike me as a lot of DLC there, but they've also released a free update that gives 6 new divine graces, whatever those are, but I would also assume those are un-Islamic, so yeah, that fatwa, maybe that was just straight up a lie. At a certain point, when only one person reported on it, one site reported on it, and then nothing ever came of it, that seems really crazy. They also added 8 new consumables and 12 new divine relics. Children of Morta is just going to be another one of those games that I'm probably going to pay too much for and play too little of. That is definitely how I kind of feel after playing Cuphead in particular. There's just a lot of potential wasted time there.
Have you the gall?
Go ahead. Cut me.
Damn.
A place to call home.
Of course, here's like the speakers of, here's the presenters of children of this thing. So is this the Humane Society, or is this just like the Western part of the team? Because yeah, I don't know, maybe the owners of Children of Morta, the creators of Children of Morta, decided to sell to a different company, because these definitely look like Western people, not so. Yeah, that's maybe they sold the whole property, or maybe that's just a localization team. Or maybe I got the whole story wrong. That is possible. That would kind of suck if it turned out Children of Morta this whole time wasn't made by a Middle Eastern country, and I thought it was. Although, I think it also is worth mentioning that I just realized that the creator of The Witness, Jonathan Blow, is also the creator of Braid, so he seemed to basically not have too many content ID problems with my coverage of The Witness. So he either changed his tune, or I was just, for some weird reason, having a lot of trouble with copyright claims and content IDs early into my streaming career, and it really wasn't Jonathan Blow or the Braid creators' fault. Union burst to 6. 4. Okay. And then in the turn. But yeah. On the other hand, there still is like no reason to go back and play Braid and once again try and put that footage on my channel. Like, Braid is so completely irrelevant. But I would play A Witness 2 if such a thing ever came out and existed. Let's see. I guess the best we're gonna get is this. None of these have evolve abilities except for this character. Gamatsu has an article. A 2D arcade shooting game, Tiny Shoot, has been announced for consoles and PC. Okay. See if we can get a slight idea of what it looks like. Yeah, it looks like it's a bullet hell charge up shooter platforming game that probably would be a little too chaotic for my eyes. What does this amulet do? Can we destroy both?
The drunken dream must end.
At the end of your turn, banish a random enemy follower. So this amulet is just wrecking me.
Your strength is formidable.
What in the world was that? These are painful lessons I'm learning against these characters. Well, I'd like one more victory, but I think 2 victories is still not enough to be guaranteed a phantom. I wish there was like a random chance of getting a phantom card. Like a guarantee if you get 4 victories, but a random chance if you don't. Just a pity timer. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Necromundia Underhive Wars Environments trailer. So, I have not heard of a game called Necromundia, which, in all fairness, there might have been lots of teasers I've seen, and I've just immediately ignored them. Yeah, well, I'm seeing a bunch of environments, but that is very much useless information. Like, totally not helpful. See. Gamatsu has an article, Vampire the Masquerade Shadows of New York launches September 10th. This is the Quarteries of New York standalone expansion, apparently. Let's see. I don't know if I'm ever going to get around to actually being able to play any of the Vampire Masquerade games, or which of the ones are going to be good. And then the last time I think I watched a teaser trailer for Vampire Masquerade games, I think there was straight up toplessness in it. So I want to be fairly careful all around that also. Gamatsu has an article here. Geo Rifters for the Switch launches September 18th, which looks colorful. What kind of game is it? Feels like these might have been from that Nintendo Indie Direct, which, what is this? It looks like it's a Smash Brothers game, which we're getting far too many Smash Brothers clones by the looks of it. Yeah, maybe this is a platforming game, but it mostly looks like a Smash Brothers clone. Alright. Go ahead and do this. And this. And... Let's see. This guy literally cannot be can't be beaten. This guy, if this guy evolves, he's going to give immortality to his own hero. We need him gone, and we need him gone now. Which means I want to do this,
Oh crap, they spotted me.
and this, and this, and this. See, next we have an article, Hime Hibi, Another Princess Days, White or Black, launches December 10th in Japan. This looks like an otome visual novel, if I've ever seen one. Yep. And I would say a lot of those do not make it over to the West. Okay. I can destroy an enemy with 4 or less and deal 1 damage to my leader. Or I can rush. Or I can have Bane. Or I can do 3 damage. So I guess we do this. Then I could summon 2 serpents for 2 mana. Or I could play this. I think I'll just play this.
It's mine. Caught you.
Still have about 10 tabs. Just because I saw the beginning of the end does not mean I'm actually close to it. I need to remind myself of that. We have a game called Wind's Rhapsody, which looks like an RPG Maker game for free. Is it from the same publishers? Nope. It's from the Geisha, and it's English only. Isn't this publisher? Like, nope, that is the same publisher, isn't it? Of RPG Maker games. So, is it really a case that the vast majority of RPG Maker games are literally published by the creators of RPG Maker? Do you solve the RPG Maker issue on Steam simply by banning the creators of RPG Maker? It might be the case. Force Bat. Kill that. Wrath is not available to me. We need 4 more hits. I'm gonna run out of cards if I'm not careful. YouTube Gaming decided to highlight a creator on the Wise called Mark MCKZ, who's a Hearthstone player. I find it fairly interesting to see a Hearthstone player on the rise or be picked to be elevated as a creator on the rise. But you know, my opinion and my thoughts on that might just be super jaded, and it is very possible that Hearthstone is just doing great right now. Okay. Bane. Start. Draw 2 cards. You know what? You play this, then we evolve, because we haven't even used an evolve. Then you take that.
That wasn't very cute.
And then you play
I won't
that.
hurt you. Too much.
You do that. 3 more damage needed. See. Let's see. August 23rd, the Epic Game Store said we're aware of an issue impacting game libraries not appearing correctly for some players. The issue has been resolved. And so, the game library being broken in the Epic Store, it's a fairly big problem. Let's see. TechRaptor has that same article. Microsoft files statement in support of Epic against Apple. Let's see what the statement actually is. For game creators in the later stages of development utilizing Unreal Engine and targeting the iOS or macOS platform, Unreal Engine's sudden loss of support for iOS and macOS would create significant costs and difficult decisions. And so, yeah, that probably would affect Microsoft, and it definitely would affect a lot of Microsoft's partners. And Microsoft is in a great position to speak on behalf of a lot of its partners who probably don't want to speak out. The creator would have significant sunk costs and lost time using Unreal Engine for game creation, and would have to choose between A, start development all over with a new game engine, or B, abandon iOS, macOS platforms, or C, cease development entirely. 3 damage to an enemy follower.
Run, my subjects!
And then damage to
I won't
leader.
hurt you. Too much.
Is there a reason to evolve more?
Weakness the power.
Sure. I'm hoping to overwhelm this guy so that he thinks. Thinks he's lost when he may not have.
We won't give him an inch.
So another quote here: Apple's removal of the Unreal Engine's ability to develop updates improvements for iOS and macOS could harm already launched iOS macOS games built on Unreal Engine if the game engine can no longer develop updates that take advantage of the new iOS and macOS features, fix software bugs, or patch security flaws. This will harm games that have already been launched on the iOS and macOS, and in turn harm gamers. In addition, the situation could bifurcate a game's player base. Such gamers on iOS and macOS cannot play or communicate with friends or family who are playing on other platforms. So apparently those are the two quotable quotes from Microsoft, and they seem to be fairly simplistic things. Well, this next game I would say is probably YouTube friendly, family friendly. I'm gonna skip it anyways. It's called Lovely Fox. On Steam, it's tagged nudity and sexual content. There is a fox anthropomorphic human with a very big butt and very big bouncy breasts being depicted in the game. Let's see.
No mercy for the weak.
Evolve. And
Let us conclude.
do that.
No need to await. Rot.
Do that.
Time to retreat.
As
And then
promised.
attack here. And attack here. Let's see. Draw a new card. Lovely Fox is early access. It's selling for 99 cents and it's English full audio. It clearly is just a pre-bought environment that actually doesn't look too asset flippy, but it's probably almost certainly just a pre-bought character model with a skin that may have been custom. It does look like a fairly rough skin, but I'm not seeing any gameplay here. It claims to be an RPG game, and I would heavily question that.
I have your heart in my sights. Breach of contract, huh?
The Summer of Code for Scum VM. Apparently, they finally, after 12 years, got support for Operation Stealth, also known as a James Bond 007, The Stealth Affair, in the US release. Interesting. Now, almost certainly this is a point-and-click adventure game. So that's also interesting. Alright. Bane and Storm. This. Vengeance is activated. Can I do both of these?
Cheap and underhanded? Why, thank you. Oh, that all you got?
I played poorly there. I played really poorly. I shouldn't have played that first. I should have done the 4 damage and then played that.
This will be over in the blink of an eye.
I will abide.
So if I lose here, it's my own fault. He has 13 cards, by the way, so
I will abide.
if I could convince him to draw 13 cards, I could win that way also. Alright, well. Boom shakalaka.
Adding flames to the fire.
And that would summon that. And
Have a look over this new
so we
contract.
should probably just play that. I think that's the right move. Next we have a game here written in Russian. It's been a while since we've seen a joke Russian game in the sense of a game making fun of what looks like a Russian person, but by the looks of everything else, this is a pretty awful game. It's 99 cents, Russian only in English.
Quake before the inferno.
And as far as I know, it says something horribly offensive as the name. So, follower and amulet. If wrath is not activated, deal 2 damage, otherwise restore 4 damage. Is this ready to go yet? Jeez, no. Alright, well.
Nothing to fear.
Come on. So now, will that finally work? Yes. Finally. He doesn't have a lot. This one card would really have to save him. Because this guy's not going to do anything. Of course, I'm not going to get to play this. Nor am I probably going to get to keep this. Is this the runaway chariot? Well, there is a chance that it will just do damage at the end of the turn to me and win.
Your strength is formidable.
That was some great ABS there. Well, we won 1, which means nothing really. We got 100 rupees for spending 100 gold for spending 4 tickets, and we're sitting high on gold and low on tickets. So first thing we want to do is just see where that left us. That we opened 6 packs, so that 6 times 8 would have been, no, it probably was 5 packs, which would have been 30, which means really there's only 3 cards that are new. Let's go ahead and liquefy that. And we are just sitting on a lot of vials. If I knew what to find, I would probably be more careful and think about crafting some things. I probably didn't help my blood deck by much, but it does give me an excuse to go back and make a better bloodcraft deck. We're looking, I guess, to see if there's anything marked new, and just to generally see what we're missing. So we got a new magic missile. We didn't have a 3rd animated version of that. And honestly, it would just be too much of a nightmare, a 3rd animated version of the Spectres. It would be too much of a nightmare to try and liquefy all the non-animated versions of cards, or liquefy all the animated versions of cards, which would be a real big mistake. But I think we might be at that point where we try to create some cards. Although I kind of don't see a point to it in this game, honestly. Normally, if this were like Hearthstone, I'd say, yeah, let's use these vials and make all the common cards, so we know we have 3 copies of all the common cards. But you wouldn't have the animated versions of the common cards, and the odds are just so high that you either will get all the common cards anyways, or you'll yeah, the odds are so high you'll get that anyways. We got a 3rd animated copy of that, that it does just seem ridiculous. And there's 51 pages of things in rotation at the moment, which I feel like that number, yep, we did get a new card there, so, and come on, quit the double clicking. So I could make about 3 cards like this that are legendary level cards, so that wouldn't really be worth it. Yeah, I'm not sure when is the right time to actually use the vials, or if there ever is a right time to use the vials. Or like, do you do it when there's a brand new expansion, or do you do it when to get the very old cards? So you could play unlimited. Let's see if we can actually figure out a trick here. Bronze. And see, you'd almost want to use temporary gems. So you have like focus here, which I could create for 50 for Portalcraft. And then, I mean, yeah, but if I don't even have the cards, I think we're at that point. Let's make one of those. Make one of those. Make one of these. Make one of these. So at the very least, then we can play with them. We probably shouldn't use enough to make 3 copies of everything, but I'm not gonna really run out of vials just making sure I have 1 copy of bronze level cards that probably don't matter. And then it'll just get more expensive as far as the silver level cards. But yeah, I need to see these cards when I do deck builds, otherwise it's just too much work to potentially have to filter through all the cards that could be created. So yeah, this is the right move. I feel good about this. I may regret this later, but I feel good about it now. And there is a possibility that by doing this, you're opening up the chances or raising the chances of potentially getting higher cards previously. So then the next question though would definitely be, do you want to do the same thing with the silver cards? Because that's much more expensive, and I don't know if there's a real logical reason to do that. If anything, I think your best bet would be to go bronze here, any rotation here, and then just go willy-nilly crazy with having at least one card from every expansion of the level of bronzes. So at least you can look at the pictures. Like, worst case scenario, you're spending 50 gold here to do this. By the way, this is a Witcher 3 reference, I'm fairly certain. This is supposed to be Ciri, and this is supposed to be the main male protagonist. And you're never going to get a better deal as far as, well, unless they decide to do a sale, you're never going to get a better deal than 50 vials for a card. So it does make sense. Although, does it make sense for me to do this on screen? Because this is the kind of boring stuff that I could be doing off screen. Yeah. So I'll do the rest of this off screen. We'll get all of the bronze tier cards, one copy of them. We're at 10,550. I imagine there is no achievement or anything for crafting a bunch of cards with vials. And it is also worth mentioning that at a certain point you just aren't going to get any more vials without getting rid of extra cards. And then at a certain point here, I think we also are out of tickets. There's nothing here that can be bought with tickets. So unless I want to just go fairly crazy, which probably is not a big deal, and spend gold, odds are low. Those are different cards. I can say that much. I don't think those are particularly good cards, but that's something. I guess I could open a decent amount of these cards. Like, I could do 4 packs plus another 100. Is that right? Yeah, I could open 100 packs of Fortune's Hand right now. And I don't know if that would be the right move, or if that would be like 10 packs as the most you could do. Interesting. 10 packs doesn't seem too crazy. They are limiting you somewhat. They're not going to let you open 100 packs to realize that you don't have anything that you're missing. This is new. And that's what we're really going to want to keep an eye out for here, is just what is new. That's new. Nothing new there. Nothing new there. I'm moving through this fairly quickly. Nothing new there. It does often feel like you get a winning streak and then you get a losing streak as far as opening these loot boxes. And let's not forget that's exactly what these are. That's new. Well, that's new. Nothing new there. So now we're at 77 of 400, and we still don't hold any of those cards or those cards. We have one of these cards, none of those cards, none of those cards, one of those cards, one of those cards, two of these cards, and none of those cards. So of what I assume is 13 cards, we have about 5 of them. There does feel like there's a bit of a disconnect from where it feels though. Because I just opened 10 packs. 10 packs would be 80 cards. 72 of those 80 cards are straight up extra, and they're just going to be liquefied back into vials, which will bump me up to 2,770 vials, which I guess at a certain point that may just be the smarter move with the older expansions, is just to use dust. And we still have a little bit of news, so we're gonna once again try to get some unlimited victories. I mean, it kind of doesn't even matter as long as you get a victory once every 2 or 3 hours of gameplay. You're still making a little bit of progress, maybe not enough progress by my standards, and very often I think I would prefer to play a different game instead. And once again, I need to beat myself in the head until I actually schedule the videos. I'm running out of space. Yeah, I'm thinking it would be nice if I could build my new computer and then find a way to have my old computer act as the file uploader. But that'd be fairly hard to do. I'd almost have to run like a virtual image of my current Windows install, I think. Well, probably not. But I couldn't. It would be wasteful to have the computer just doing that. And I'm already on the verge of being fairly wasteful with my old computer, and that I'm going to just set it up to be a server to serve another server. And the first server itself was probably a little wasteful too. So, yeah.
May the forest be at peace.
Next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian letters. It's tagged as an RPG. It looks like it is some kind of, I would guess, Japanese RPG game. I'm not going to just immediately assume that it's Chinese or that it's based on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's $9.99. It is Chinese. Okay. This might be based on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, but I Again, I shouldn't just immediately assume that.
Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play.
Let's see. TechRaptor has this article that DC Fandom happened, and not a lot of video game announcements, but Suicide Squad's actual title is going to be Kill the Justice League, which that definitely says something in that they seem like they will be bad guys actually trying to kill members of the actual Justice League, not the Bizarro World group of people that are the bad versions of Superman. There was thought there that they were going to have to hunt down like Bizarro or something like that, and I guess that would have potentially made a little bit of sense.
Bad people are evil. Stay away.
But it definitely feels like they are just gonna straight up go against Superman at some point. Although I doubt really. I think that is gonna be an exaggeration. It seems like you're gonna have Deadshot, Harley Quinn, King Shark, I believe, and Boomerang, I think, the Australian guy, which that does seem like it, like the general Suicide Squad, or the most recognizable Suicide Squad group. Let's see. Restore 2 damage. Let's do that.
Let's play.
Attack here and attack here. It's going to be an up to 4-player co-op experience. Yeah, Captain Boomerang, Harley Quinn, King Shark, and Deadshot.
Witness the power.
Not sure what the real game though really is going to be there, because either you're going to have them work their way up. It's from the Batman Arkham series, so, and apparently Cyber, I forget the robotic Brainiac is going to be involved a lot, so maybe Brainiac is going to take control of a bunch of things. Deadshot is being played by a black guy, but not Will Smith in this trailer. I don't want to show this trailer because it's going to get content ID'd. There was definitely a video that everybody tried to show in an advertisement video that you literally could not copyright claim legally, and it still got copyright claimed.
The power of nature. Beg for mercy.
So sparkly.
So yeah, maybe Brainiac takes control of the Justice League and you're fighting a bunch of low-level bosses and working your way up. I really have to question though if Brainiac could take control of Superman, which the trailer is showing Superman here. I doubt the Suicide Squad could do anything.
Let us conclude.
They're only showing Superman from behind, and he's holding a security person, and he just shot them with his eye. But the S on his chest is not backwards. He's not a Bizarro.
The stars pale beside me.
Breach of contract, huh?
So,
Hey, let's play.
yeah.
Checkmate.
My beauty will intoxicate so
I
vile.
just don't know how you're gonna have the Suicide Squad take on any of the main Justice League people. Not Superman, not Batman, not the Flash. It's just gonna be ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Moving on with DC announcements, Gotham Knights announced for PS5, Xbox Series X, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And yeah, I lost again. I mean, literally, I'm just gonna have to fall down until it matches me against somebody that is easier to beat. Or I need to be playing some of these other characters, like Forgecraft is up to level 80, Swordcraft over here is up to level 39, Bloodcraft is probably at level 15. I need to balance out the types of decks I'm playing. So, I think it is worth mentioning that Warner Brothers was recently acquired by AT&T. A lot of things could have been just rushed so everybody gets like a paycheck and approved, and there might have been a lot of just trying to shove things under the door type mentalities.
You must die.
So we may have some games here and some projects that have been announced that will very quickly get canceled by AT&T if AT&T cares one bit about WB and like the DC universe more than using the licensed characters to make movies, and maybe they don't even care about that. I mean, who knows? But we have another DC game here. Batman is supposedly dead. I'm going to put that as supposedly. Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Robin will rise up. So here you have Batgirl and Nightwing and Red Hood and Robin. And they're all, I think, too close to each other's ages. So that they're generally shown like the 3 or 4 generations of Robins who at one time were Robins are several years apart. And I think Batgirl at one point either dated Nightwing or Red Hood, so that might make her look a little too old.
Let's speed things up.
I'm not sure what the really gameplay mechanic is though for it. Open world third person action RPG featuring the Batman family. Not calling it the Bat family, the Batman family. Interesting. And almost certainly it's going to be the Court of Owls because they've been trying to push the Court of Owls for a long time. It feels a lot like the Marvel game potentially, where you might just get loot boxes and just be in a gameplay loop that has you playing over and over again, beating up the same generic bad guys over and over again. I'll say the trailer, which I'm not going to show, does look much more cinematic than anything that the Marvel Adventures games look like, but I'm now seeing some enemies and they do feel very much like they are just the same old people you would have had to beat up in the Arkham Asylum games. They're showing some swinging cinematics, which I'm not sure any of that is actually true. Like, I bet they're not actually showing any actual gameplay. Let's see.
To arms, brother. At your service. Too slow.
But they're really not showing a lot here. As far as anything that looks like gameplay, it looks like there might be some platforming and puzzling and maybe quick time event trap dodging, and maybe even some motorcycle sequences. And you're gonna fight Mr. Freeze, apparently. I guess the idea is, if this literally is just going to be the new Arkham Asylum game, but they're going to get rid of Batman and try to have people forget about how terrible the previous game was, there might be an idea there. If they are teasing in this trailer the Court of Owls, so if they have the Court of Owls, they're going to wake up their Talons, which the Talons are the like superhuman type assassins for the Court of Owls.
I am Belinus the Shining.
So you're probably going to have a lot of sub bosses if that's the case, and potentially very powerful sub bosses. They have a gameplay walkthrough trailer here, so I'm going to watch that. No, I really don't have time for it. Does look like it's a big open world Gotham, and it does look to me like a Gotham and not something else, not New York reskinned on first glance at least.
No one gets past me. This is our way out. Too slow.
It seems to have some parkouring and some running, but mostly it is definitely the Arkham style of beating up people, even to the point where bats are circling Batgirl here, either as a ability or as an indicator that she's gaining XP. And it feels like she's running around the Arkham Asylum island even, because there's definitely some content here that looks like the island, and the same grapple abilities and such as Arkham Asylum. Now, if this is going to be a 4-player game more around action, I wouldn't be surprised if they just opt to not have any collectibles at all. And instead it is just an attempt to be more of a fast-paced beat-em-up game. But yeah, and then I'm seeing a boss fight here with 2 people jumping around doing a bunch of backflips fighting Mr. Freeze. See. Let's play this and this and this
Too slow.
and this. Yeah, I'm not particularly ecstatic from the Arkham Knights trailers. I'm saying Gotham Knights trailers. There might be a game there, but it probably is just going to be yet another Arkham Asylum type game. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Blackjack Math, which probably is, I assume, teaching you how to card count and do the card counting math. But then I don't understand the division and the multiplication in that case, because that's not how you card count. It's just addition and subtraction. So I have no idea what this really is supposed to represent. See, it's a game about mixing the cards to match the correct formula in order to get 21. Okay. I guess that might work, although it seems like black cards are always positive and then red cards are negative numbers. This is 69 cents in English only, and I think this is probably too simplistic of a game. It definitely looks like a low effort single screen puzzle game. Even by comparison to other single screen puzzle games. So I'm not gonna put that on the follow list. Okay.
Better stand back before you get burned.
Evolve this to banish this.
You're done for.
I have your heart in my sight.
So we can attack with all this. Next, we have a game on Steam called Heroes of Dungeon, which is a match 3 game, obviously. I kind of like this art style, but the game at play mechanic itself seems to be fairly low effort and generic. I can't imagine that I'd want to spend more than 5 minutes playing this game. $2.39 English only. Unlike games like You Have to Build a Boat or Honey Pop, which had their own unique twists to match 3, Heroes of Dungeon seems to be playing it mostly straight. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. The Beat Saber Linkin Park songs are censored, which apparently would be offensive to many people, and apparently there's other problems too with it. So buyer beware, the people with VR headsets and Beat Saber. TechRaptor has another article here. The next Pokemon VGC series bans the most popular Pokemon. VGC, what is that? Let's see. The competitive scene of Shield and Sword is getting a shakeup in the unprecedented for the VGC scene. What is that? Video Game Championships? So they're banning several Pokemon like Gyarados and Porygon 2, Venusaur. Okay. I don't think that matters to anybody that's not playing some kind of Pokemon Championship though. So okay.
Gotcha.
This
Don't be so cold.
and this
Don't you wanna die?
and then this
Fishies are dancing. I guard Otohime.
and in return.
Come, I'll love you down to the bone. You gotta see me dance.
Next, we have a game on Steam called The Call Center, and anybody who's ever worked at a call center almost certainly does not want to play a game where you work at a call center, or work at a call center, or ever think about working in a call center. In fact, even people who've never even thought about working in a call center probably don't want to think about working in a call center. They suck. This is a visual novel for $4.49 in English only, and yeah, I don't think you could drag me with a pack of wild horses to play this game. In all fairness, some call centers are different than others. Like there are definitely ones where you're laid back and you're taking like internal office calls for support, that where you're actually working with the people that are calling and they actually want to work with you. And then there are call centers where you're cold calling people trying to collect on debts or something as equally unpleasant, and you're gonna just get yelled at and hung up on the whole time. And definitely there's a level of whether the call center wants you to spend every breath in your lungs talking to somebody, or whether they're gonna be more reasonable and you're gonna have a lot of downtime or any downtime. Let's see.
Darling, I'll be home soon.
Okay, what do I want to do here? Probably evolve this.
Time to see what I can. Let's have some fun.
Hit this.
You'll never
This. 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 And that. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Ethereal Enigma, which was tagged as a JRPG choose your own adventure dating sim, which is rated very positively. I would say it's probably a visual novel,
I'll love you down to the bone.
but apparently it has some RPG elements. It has a very nice video animated intro, but that doesn't mean it's actually a good game by any means.
Don't say a word.
It's $16.99, which is probably the right price, but maybe even a little too cheap. Let's see. It's a full relationship sim with full voiceover, which that is intriguing. And it has English full audio, and that is intriguing. But then it doesn't have any Japanese support. And then this developer, let's see, has one other game on my wish list that's overwhelmingly positive. So it does seem like they're a publisher with perhaps some credibility behind what they list, instead of flooding Steam with garbage. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Sword Boy, which looks like garbage. Yeah, looks like it's a beat 'em up Chinese game. Early access, $7.99. English and Chinese as the language. Okay. So I think if I do this, and then this, this, and this, I'll win. We got this, and that was 100 gold.
The pleasure was all mine.
So maybe I should have just been playing Swordcraft this whole time. Let's see. Because that did just get me another 20 golds for 5 ranked wins in Swordcraft. And reaching level 40 gets me more animated basic cards. And then what'll be interesting here is you can see this says 3 of 5 now. So does that mean there are 2 more rewards you can get today? 2 more rewards you can get till the between now and the 30th? Do I need to get 3 more victories until I can get another chest, or do I just need to play 3 more games? It'd be really helpful if any of this was explained anywhere, but unless it was just like secretly under the help page on the website. See, clicking here on help does not explain anything at all. See. Yeah, there's literally nothing coming up that looks anywhere close like it would actually explain half this stuff. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Otome the Exorcist, which Otome probably is a famous princess or exorcist, or just a more popular Japanese name than I think. It's $13.49, English, Japanese, and Chinese, no audio. This looks to me, they're saying it's an RPG, JRPG. Yeah, it does look like it's an RPG Maker type game, but it definitely doesn't look interesting by any means. And then that will leave me with just one more tab to open up, and then we can look at the Humble Bundle, and then we can check Twitter, and then that can be it for this stream. I feel like we've probably been going fairly long. Come on. Yep. Yeah, finally we have a game here that's all in Asian markers. It looks to me like it's probably a Japanese travel study guide or something, or a travel trivia guide, because this definitely looks like Japan and their railway systems, if I was to guess. And this does seem like it is just a collection of real world images and characters. Well, they're actually tagging it as a hentai mature visual novel. Wasn't expecting that. $17.99, Chinese only. Interesting. Chinese language only, and yet it's set in Japan. It does kind of look like a Chinese game, though, I guess, by the guesstimation on the amount of text showing up on each screenshot. And then finally, that brings me to the Humble Bundle. The Killing Floor Games bundle is 9 days left, so I don't think there will be any new bundles until that's gone, and so I don't see anything. And then that brings me back to my Twitter feed, and we'll see if there's anything new that's happened this Monday. Unity IPO paints an optimistic future for the game engine. Yeah, I imagine Unity's initial public offering would be fairly good right now with the whole conflict of Epic and the Unreal Engine, although probably isn't that good of it really, because it's also a case of the economy just not being great. Man, I keep just pausing. I shouldn't have streamed. I should have slept. But yeah, I made it to the end, so what can I say? But I am definitely just going quiet. Although, in all fairness, I have just been going quiet instead of going and as much as I possibly could. So there's some level of improvement in my speaking skills. Although also, in all fairness, for as much footage as I've created at this point, I should probably be a lot better at speaking. I'm still scrolling down my Twitter feed. And not even seeing a lot of games that have come out over the stream, which is not super surprising. Mondays all of a sudden have gotten slower. Everything's gotten slower, but Mondays have become just as bad as Fridays as far as new announcements not coming out until late on a Monday or early to late on a Tuesday. Yep, and with that, there's nothing new on my Twitter feed either. So that's going to be it for this stream, and we're at the 3-hour mark. It feels longer. Like, I remember playing Hearthstone streams and getting more involved with them and then going 4 or 5 hours. But now, just 3 hours on the mark for a Shadowverse. It feels like enough. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.